Stephanie Dobson is back with us this week. Stephanie is a local lawyer and mediator with Henka Divorce Law and Mediation. Stephanie, we've been talking about mainly divorce proceedings and separation over the past couple of months. Today we're going to be talking about something that's kind of connected to that, and that's Clare's Law. So can you tell me a little bit about what Clare's Law is?
Sure. Clare's Law is new legislation in Alberta and recent legislation in Saskatchewan that's designed to help people who feel that they're at risk of domestic violence to find out whether their partner has a violent or abusive history. So this legislation arose out of the UK, where a young woman named Claire Wood back in 2009 was murdered by her ex-boyfriend, who was known to police to have a violent history. And it's thought that Claire's life could have been spared if she had had a mechanism to find out about the history of her ex-boyfriend. So in the UK, this legislation was first put into place in 2014. And in Alberta, it's brand new. April 1st, Clare's Law was proclaimed in Alberta. And in Saskatchewan, it was last year in June of 2020. It was proclaimed in Saskatchewan.
So Stephanie, how does Clare's Law work?
Sure. There's three parts to this legislation. So there's the right to ask, the right to know, and the right to privacy. So under the right to ask, this allows an applicant, which will typically be a person who is in an intimate partner relationship, to ask the police about their intimate partner's domestic violence history. So that's an application process to the police. There's also, the second one is the right to know. So this is a proactive approach that can be taken by the police, where they can initiate a conversation with someone who's in possibly a situation of domestic violence, where they can actually, without even an applicant coming to them, they can initiate that discussion to let the person, the potential victim of domestic violence, to find out about the violent history. And third is the right to privacy. So of course, our viewers might be wondering, that seems like a bit of an invasion of privacy of someone to tell an intimate partner about the history. So the legislation has really tried to emphasize making sure that the disclosure that's made is made in such a way as to only provide the information that's needed, and it's done in a way that it's not able to be used in other proceedings. It's just for the sole purpose of helping someone to make an informed choice of whether they should stay in that relationship or not.
So what are some of the things that a person can find out about their intimate partner's history?
So given that the main focus of this legislation is on the prevention of domestic violence, the information that they would receive would relate to the likelihood that the victim or the applicant would be a victim of domestic violence. So under the right to ask, the applicant is able to find out, and under the right to know, the police is able to provide the information about the history of domestic violence by the intimate partner. So there's an assessment that's conducted by the police as to the history, and the disclosure of that history is only made if there's certain things that are found out. So things like the history of domestic violence, of course, stalking or harassment, breaches of no contact orders, or other relevant information.
So once this is done, Stephanie, if there's a risk to the applicant, if that's found out through this process, then what happens after that?
So this assessment that's conducted can take a number of weeks, a number of months. And so in the meantime, irrespective of the level of risk, the applicant is able to talk with police about some social services agency opportunities for them to connect and to get the help that they need in the meantime while the assessment is being completed. So once the police does their assessment, the applicant will then meet with the police to get information about the partner's history. So depending on the level of risk that they find, that assessment or that interview with the police will be done either by phone or in person. So the police will come back with either insufficient information or the risk being low, moderate, or high. So there's many safeguards in place to ensure that the applicant is only able to use this information for the purpose of getting out of, or making an informed choice about getting out of or staying in a relationship if there's a potential for domestic violence. So in the legislation and the regulation, there's specific wording that says you're not able to use any of this information in other proceedings. So you can't use it for the purpose of, say, a divorce battle. And it's of specific note that any information that's provided is only provided verbally and never provided in writing.
Stephanie, this is very important legislation. If people are looking to get the breakdown of it, or if they want to find out a little bit more about how Clare's Law works, what is the best way to get that information?
So because this legislation is so new, there's so much information online. And of course, it goes into so much more detail than what we've been able to get into today. And so there's specific steps that if you are someone who wants to find out information under the right to ask, you are an applicant, here's your application form, you can download it. I'm sure that there's also the opportunity to go to the police station and to be able to have a printed out copy if you need that, or the social services agencies would also be able to help to have an applicant make that formal application.
All right, Stephanie, well, thank you so much for breaking this down for us. We really appreciate you speaking with us, and we'll chat with you again next week.
You bet. Thanks, Stacey.